In this video, we will be doing a deep dive comparison between the Garmin inReach Messenger and the ZOLEO Satellite Communicator. Both devices functions primarily on messaging, but you can still do the basic check-ins, SOS, and weather, and some tracking that you can do with other satellite communicators or previous inReach devices. But before we get going here with our deep dive, and in this video we'll be focusing on the messaging feature, but let's go back a couple years when ZOLEO was first released. What it tried to do was to focus on the flexibility of messaging. One of the big caveats at the time, if you had an inReach, is that the conversations that you had on the device stayed on the device. So they tried to open things up a couple years ago, and the Garmin inReach Messenger is kind of a response to that. So one of the things that you can do is the ZOLEO, when you activate your device, you get a dedicated SMS number and email address. And we'll see once we get into the deep dive comparison how that is still a very good feature to have as compared to the inReach. The other aspect that is shared between the ZOLEO and the Garmin inReach Messenger is the ability to send messages from the cheapest to the most expensive network. When ZOLEO first came out, it really exemplified this by being able to send messages first by Wi-Fi, if that wasn't available, by cellular. If those two weren't available, then it would send it via the Iridium Satellite network and thus against your service charges. The Garmin inReach Messenger kind of does the same thing, and that is also a big plus with the messaging, meaning that you can continue your messaging. Doesn't matter if you have your device on, doesn't matter if you're charging your device, doesn't matter if you're wherever you are, the message will get through. You'll be able to send and receive messages. Now let's get going here. So I'm going to open up the ZOLEO app first, and we can take a look at the interface. You can see here that I don't have my ZOLEO turned on because I'm going to want to do this with the Wi-Fi network. You can see on my phone I have Wi-Fi and also have cellular, but I want to show you how this will work first. And you can see I'm not turned on and I am not connected. So basically we can see here, this looks very much like any other messaging app that you have on your smartphone, but it gives you some flexibility. So obviously we can have a conversation with somebody with an SMS number, an email, or app to app. And you can see here that I have some message balloons, and you can see I have little icons indicating the type of messaging. So the top one, the teal one, is an email address. The little green circle, the second one is an app-to-app message, and the third one is an SMS message. So if I were to go into my SMS message, you can see here that I have my dedicated ZOLEO number, which is really good to have. And you can see I have my timestamps, and you know that I'm sending this over the Wi-Fi or cellular because I don't have a satellite icon on my timestamp, and we'll see that a little bit later. So what I can do here, you can see how many characters I have available. I can type in a message here. So for example, I might be doing a test message using the ZOLEO Satellite Communicator, and now I can send the message afterwards. And the message has been sent. I've sent it here to one of my Google Voice numbers so we can see what it looks like. And I'm just flip over to that app. An example, take a look here. We already have it received. And this is just another SMS number. I can respond to this if I'm a user to the sender. And I'm just going to respond, got it. And I'm sending it back to my ZOLEO device. And if I were to take a look, it's already received because we're going through, in this case, Wi-Fi. If I were to flip over and turn off Wi-Fi, and now that I'm on cellular, you can see here on my phone, I'm down to my 5G, I can still send the message away. And here I'm going to send a quick one here. Okay, and same thing goes over the satellite, not satellite, the cellular network. And you can see that the message was received on the other end. So let's take a look at Garmin Messenger to see how that does that. So what we're going to do here, we're going to open up our Garmin inReach Messenger, and you can see that the interface is the same, and you can see here that the device is not connected. Let's flip back to the Messages tab, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn back on the Wi-Fi. And now, but you can see here that it has a very similar layout. Your contacts still have the little bubble to indicate the type of message. See, the top one here is to another inReach, and you can see the second one is an SMS number, and the third one is an email. And actually, the one here that says Jim ZOLEO, that is an Garmin Messenger type of message. So there's 4 message types here. Let's start with the SMS. So you can see here it looks pretty much the same. And from here, I'm going to send a message using the Garmin inReach Messenger. And again, we have 160 characters length for this. So I'm going to send this also. And if I wanted to see some stats about the message, I can tap on the balloon and I can have all sorts of information. And you can see here on the message type how the message got sent. In this case, it will get sent via the Wi-Fi. If it was cellular, it would be the same thing, internet message. So let's flip back over to my receiver, and I should have my message from my inReach, but you'll notice here that I have a phone number. And this is one of the things that is different between the inReach and the ZOLEO. You'll get from your inReach random phone numbers, and the phone numbers will recycle. I've already recycled it once since I've got the inReach, but this one here seems to be sticky, so you can see I've sent some messages over the last few weeks. But compared to ZOLEO, you can share your SMS contact number right away to whoever it is to say that if you need to get a hold of me, add this to your contact list and you can send me a message anytime. Compared to inReach, you really have to initiate the conversation from the inReach or for the messenger when you want to send an SMS, because the receiver doesn't know which number you're going to send it to or doesn't know where to send it to. Let's flip over back to our inReach, and again, let's do our Wi-Fi. Let's turn that off. And again, let's do a message. So here we will send the message using the cellular network instead of Wi-Fi. And in this case, I'll do a message that is a little bit longer than 160 characters. And you can see here that we're getting close to our count. I'm going to add a couple of emojis like this. You can see that I am above my message length and I can't necessarily send it. So I'll just bring it back and send it. Let me respond to my first message here. And let's see if my messenger received it. And it doesn't look like in this case this message got sent. But yet I can reply to it. So I am missing a reply. So that's a problem. All right, so now let's return to our ZOLEO app. And now I went and I turned on the ZOLEO. It's outside, and you can see here the ZOLEO is turned on because I can see the weather and the SOS buttons, which are satellite only. And you can see here that when I turn on the drawer, I can see here that it's doing message checks, and you can see messages are delivered via mobile. If I were to turn off, like I said, cellular and Wi-Fi, let's turn that off. You can see now that the messages will be delivered via satellite. So anything that we'll send now will be over the Iridium Satellite network. So what I'll do here is I'm going to send a message here. I'm going to send now a message over the Iridium Satellite network. And now I'm going to send it. And while it sends over the satellite, you can see the timestamp shows a satellite icon. And you can see that we have a little spinning wheel icon, meaning that it's about to get sent over the device. And now this message will cost me a service plan, against my service plan, I should say. All right, so let's go back to while that sends, we're going to go back to our Garmin Messenger. And you can see that now we are connected. And now I can send a message. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a second message type, which is I did the cellular. Let me do, let me try to send another message here with now using, again, the Iridium. And now, when I send it, so while that sends, we can go back to our ZOLEO. You can see that the message got sent. All right, so now you see the spinning icon has stopped moving, meaning that the message should have been sent. So let's go take a look. And actually, let me tap on here. You can see now that we have a timestamp. You can see that this message was actually sent via the Iridium Satellite network. So, all right, so now that I've gone over, it took a couple of minutes. You can see by the top left of the clock and when I sent the message. So I can see here that I received my message over the Iridium Satellite network. And you can also see here that I received my inReach. And you can see the link here that will show the location. So now that I've turned on both of my Wi-Fi Cellular now, let's go to the next type of message. Let's go back to our ZOLEO app and send the next type of message, which is an email. So here I have an email address. And basically what I can do here is I can, first of all, write a much longer message. Here I can send up to 236 characters. This will allow me to send a much longer message and perhaps additional details that would be beneficial for this type of message length. And we can send it here. Let me flip over to the inReach Messenger. Again, I have an email contact. And in this case, let's send it to this one here. So I'm going to send it to an email address. However, when we are sending an inReach message to an email address, it will still have the 160 character limit, which limits you with how long your messages are going to be. And you can see here that I can't go quite as far. So if you're sending it to an email, you still got to send it, a certain amount of characters. So now what I've done here is I've sent this email address to my ZOLEO dedicated email address. So that means that I can actually go back to my ZOLEO app and I can see that the message was received. I can tap on it. But as you can see here, I can get more than 160 characters length. However, I cannot respond to this inReach user because you can see the email address is a generic no reply address. However, I have to tap on this link. You can see on the message above here, I got to tap on this link to be able to enter my reply in a web form, right? As opposed to responding directly from an email client. So now what I'm going to do here, let me flip over to an email client. So you can see here's my email that I just received. It was sent from my ZOLEO to an email address. So now I can simply reply to my ZOLEO directly. Understood, it is much easier to send messages via email on ZOLEO. Right? So now we can send this message directly back to my ZOLEO from any email address. So that's great. However, for inReach, you got to go through this web form. And lastly is the app-to-app message. So anybody, as you can see, we've sent some messages without really needing the device turned on. That also means that you can have other people download the messaging apps, both for ZOLEO and for Garmin Messenger, and to be able to create an account and be able to send messages. So again, same thing here. I can send it. And you can see here, I'm not going to send an app-to-app error message, but you can see here that we can send over 1,000 characters in length. And you can see this is quite awesome. Also, when you have users using the ZOLEO messaging app, you can get updates for tracking using the Location Share Plus. And you can see here I just received my email address. So let's go back to the inReach Messenger, and we want to send to another Messenger account. Again, same thing here is that when you're sending a message even to a Garmin Messenger account holder that doesn't have a device, you are still limited to about 160 characters. You can see here by the counter that we still don't have that flexibility to that. So again, so basically for inReach, all messages will have 160 character in length, as opposed to the ZOLEO where you have either 160 characters for SMS messages, over 200, in this case 230 characters for emails, and the email can be responded via an email client, not a web form. And third, if you're sending to an app-to-app message type, you're sending over 1,000 characters, and plus you'll have the ability to view the person's ZOLEO's location share, which is the same thing as map share, which we will cover in another video. Obviously, both messaging apps will take advantage of your smartphone contact list. ZOLEO, you'll have access to your entire contact list for SMS, email, even app-to-app messages. The same thing goes for the Garmin Messenger smartphone app. However, as you are aware with inReach users, you can have a separate set of contacts on the inReach device itself. That's because you can send messages from the Messenger device itself, not just a smartphone. That's a common feature that you will see across most inReach things. You can't necessarily do that on ZOLEO, meaning you can't store individual contacts on the device itself because there's really no way you can send messages from the device. You got to use your smartphone app. You can, however, send check-ins and SOSs from the device without the use of a smartphone app, and we'll take a look at that in future videos. Let's recap the features which I think are important. Dedicated SMS number, ZOLEO has it. Dedicated email address, ZOLEO has it. inReach does have an email address for an internal use, which is basically device to the device. So if you have an older inReach user or you're a group of inReach users, you can use that, but you can't really use or leverage that internal email address. Both can send SMS messages up to 160 characters in length. However, when you get into emails, messages can be sent on the ZOLEO over 200 characters, and also app-to-app messages over 1,000 characters. And when you're sending email messages to a ZOLEO user, the receiver can reply via any email client that they wish, as compared to the inReach where you got to use a web form. Both can access the smartphone contact list, and inReach does have that little benefit of being able to store a separate set of contacts for the device only. And there you go. This is part one of our deep dive comparisons. Hopefully you've liked this video, and we'll talk to you guys next time.